Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number 254. Now there's going to be very minimal me whining on about anything because the person that's on today's show keeps coming back and I need to ask the question, Shelly, how do you keep getting back on my show?
Honestly, I've no idea. I've totally blagged the first two. And then a few things came up and you've asked me back. I'm as shocked as anyone else.
I think the only other person I've had on 3 times was Dave Crossland, where we opened the conversation of steroids in the fitness industry. And he just kept opening up more and more cans of worms. I was like, Dave, you've got to come back. Dave, you've got to come back.
Well, that's not even a problem in our sport.
Of course not. Moving on. So I just saw Shelly not so long ago at another CrossFit competition because we're doing more and more stuff with awesome supplements in CrossFit because I like CrossFit, I like the ethos, I like what they do, and I think Awesome Supplements has a good place in CrossFit in terms of how we've positioned our products and stuff. But the reason why Shelly's on to the show today is because, well, while we do support her in her training with our products, there is a massive element of how, because for me I always look at progress and I look at my own progress quite objectively, but I'm quite kind of loose about it. I don't hold myself to any really hardcore goals because at the end of the day I'm an average guy. I like doing average things, hanging out with my mates and just doing normal stuff. I'm not trying to compete to be something where I need to be at the top of my sport, and Shelly is someone that's pushing herself within CrossFit to be better all the time. And over the last year, Shelly has done that. So Shelly, you've gone, I'm just looking at my notes, you've gone from 97th in the UK last year to 37th in the UK this year so far, and 408th in Europe. And Europe's a big place, people. There's a lot of people in Europe from 408th to 189th, which is awesome. So firstly, congrats.
Thank you very much.
Secondly, I want to kind of ask you what's changed. You've become a better athlete physically, mentally. You've got a coach, Carl Greenslade. He's part of Body Type Nutrition. He's one of our coaches. What's changed for you over the last year? And I'll let you attack this question wherever you want.
Okay, well, last year I was mainly in the Scottish pool. I trained pretty much always at home at FFD CrossFit in Dundee. And I did go to a few development camps, definitely, and I worked with some other athletes, but I didn't have an awful lot of direction. Whereas this year I've also had a CrossFit coach, and I'm on a training program, like a set training program. It's called MoveFit, and it's by my catches. So for me, that one of the biggest things is the direction of my training and the focus of my training. Obviously, it's important to constantly vary what I do, and there's so many elements to my specific sport that I have to be looking at. Weightlifting, gymnastics, Metcon, all the running and the rowing, but then there's a lot of skills work, there's a lot of gymnastics part in that. So for me, having a set structure of a program was really important. Anyone who wants to get better... Hang on,
I'm going to stop you there. I need to clarify, because before that, it wasn't like you were doing random stuff. Like you had structure and you had... So actually, what quantifiably changed? Was it just that you had an objective eye? You felt you had a better programmer? Was there more expertise?
I'm going to have to confess something here.
Okay.
You put me in this corner. So what I used to do was go into CrossFit, look at the board and think, yeah, part A and B looks amazing. I'm not going to do part C. Great. And then I would just not do it. So although my box programmed like weightlifting is the first element, and then the second bit was like gymnastic skills, and then the third bit was like a really sweaty workout, I would be like, oh, I don't have time for that. And so I would say there's one thing that is what this program I'm on now, the change from that, apart from what was programmed before, is one thing and one thing only: accountability. I'm asked to give my scores every day from what I've just done. So I would say that's the thing. And also this focus. So I don't know, did we discuss it in the last time? In October of last year, I seriously damaged my knee.
We did talk about that.
So that's like 5-6 months ago now. And from then, that's when I got picked up by this coach, and that's when I started working on a separate program, because I had noodle arms but massive legs. If anyone's ever seen me, though, I am all legs, was all legs. And whereas now, in that time, because I couldn't really use my legs, I massively focused on my upper body, done loads of gymnastic skills, pushing, pressing, handstand, push-ups, handstand stability, shoulder stability, because I was missing that as an athlete, because I love to squat. I like to squat, overhead squat, front squat, I love to do that. So that's what I do all the time, and I would neglect my upper body. So having that knee injury was actually a bit of a turning point for me as an athlete. Now I can do all of the gymnastic skills, RX, with weight and more, and I was never able to do that, and it just came down to practice and time.
When something bad happens in life, so your knee injury was actually at a competition I was at, wasn't it? Was it Beasts? Yeah. So your knee injury happened at Beasts, and it was like, shit, like, that's bad, and you were doing well in the competition, like...
Yeah, I made the semi-finals, and that was my aim that year, for the semi-finals. I made it, but
do you believe that things like this happen for a reason? The reason why I bring this up is we discussed this last week in the podcast with Rachel, and someone wrote in and they had a bad accident. Like, you know, you wouldn't wish it on anyone, like, left a bit of a scar, quite literally. And I said to people, I was like, however morbid stuff is in life, I believe it happens for a reason. And even if it stops you getting third place medal 1 year, that's destined to actually change your path to make sure you're second or first kind of thing.
It's a platform. It's a platform. I was actually very lucky. I have a very good friend. Her name's Gillian. And she's got such a positive outlook on life. And at times, I don't. I've been better with that this year, and that probably plays a part in why I've developed as an athlete as well. However, Gillian gifted me a book by Ryan Holiday, and it's called the Object is the Way, The Obstacle is the Way. So
yeah, great book.
It's about, amazing book, and it's about turning adversity into advantage, and that can be applied to anything in life, whether it's a work situation, a relationship, or for me it was sport, because this is my focus and my priority. So, I mean, you will relate it however you want to. So when I read this about there being an obstacle and there is another way to overcome it, and it's all about your mindset, I didn't need to be told to apply that to sport. I read it as though it was written to an athlete. So I read that book during the time that I was injured, and the little monologues it suggests and the way it tells you to process your thoughts, or at least address your thoughts so that you can actually do something with them, was excellent for me. So yeah, massively advantage out of adversity here. But I will say that my coach had a big part to play in that as well. He was the one, when the semi-finals came up, and I was literally, I couldn't do it, but I obviously wanted to. That was my goal, and I'd made it, and I wanted to do it. He was the one that said, there's a bigger picture here. You know, you have a bigger goal, and this was your goal this year, you've hit that target. I'm proud of you at this point. You know, you would be a better athlete to take a step back now and use what's just happened as a platform for the future. And that's exactly what I did. And I would say that this year in our test, the Open, the CrossFit Open is how we measure each year. That came up, and one thing I did not struggle with this year was gymnastics. And last year, that's what held me back.
I think the key point for me, despite what you've said, Shelley, is that people, like, however bad things get or seem in life, the empowering way to look at life is that this has happened for a reason, and I have to turn this on its head. And I love it when we see things in the media where someone has had, you know, we take someone like a war veteran who's been away, served in Afghanistan, a tragic event, you know, leg, I don't know, something blown off, and then the next year they're inspiring kids in schools, or, you know, they've climbed Kilimanjaro or anything like that. And actually, while that is a very tragic, abnormal kind of environment, they have used that to inspire other people and inspire themselves, even though it doesn't seem like the normal way to do things, or they seem to look normal. And I think if you don't think like that, it's only going to lead in a negative outcome.
Completely agree. And I think taking a positive mindset to something that's happened is very, very important, because I don't want to look back on that and be like, oh, those 3 months I cried every day as I did my rehab. And that's actually probably true, because it was really sore. And because when I went and seen the specialist all the time, one guy apologized to me before he even gave me my results, because he knew it. Not that he knew who I was, but he knew what I did. And because he comes here and he read it and he had a look and he just said, I'm really sorry. And I was like, no, that is not the way I'm going to feel about this. This is not how I'm going to think about this. I'm going to think about this as, okay, so out of the game at the minute is lower body stuff, that's fine, but I can still activate my hamstrings and my glutes. And that's something I massively need to work on anyway. So there's an opportunity for me to not do anything where I'm sitting below parallel or stressing my joints. And my nutritionist, Carl, he changed my food for recovery. So I needed more calories, I needed more vitamins and minerals, I needed everything to be able to help my body recover and recharge and rebuild, because I'd essentially destroyed a part of my knee. So I used it as a good way to learn more about how to help people recover. Obviously, in my job, people come to me with injuries all the time. And the fact that I had one, and then this year, like I registered with Ion Strength and Conditioning, and I've been in Cardiff for the last 5-6 months or whatever. And I finished first in Wales this year, like collectively the highest scoring athlete registered in Wales out of the females. And to be 5 months ago not able to actually walk, and 4 months ago being congratulated on walking up the stairs without any help, to be here now, that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to use this as a chance to get better at all the things I would avoid. And I see people with injuries all the time. I have a couple of athletes with injuries, but their mindset's not quite right. And as much as it's like you can take a horse to water, as much as I can hand over that book, as much as I can say, do you know, this is an opportunity, you've got to really feel like it is. You've got to take an injury and say, okay, what can I do with this? Where do we go from here? And yes, there's a bad part to this, but there's also a mountain of advantages. And there's so many different things that we train that an ankle injury, a foot injury, a knee injury, they can be worked around. Yeah, it's no fun. Yeah, you have to avoid all the things that everyone else is doing. But this, your track is your track, your road that you're on. It's only you that walks that road, because it's only you that sleeps the way you do, eats the way you do. There's only one of you, which means everything you do to recover will be unique, just like yourself. So for me, I just had to be okay with that. I wrote my own rehab plan. That's what I do. So I wrote my rehab plan and I stuck to it. And every day it was hard to start with. And people were saying, oh, I'm so sorry. Is this the end of the road for you? And that's hard as well. That's really difficult to overcome when you're like, oh, no, I'll be fine. Like, I'm just going to rehab. I'm going to do it properly. And I'm going to focus on the things I need to focus on. And that's where having coaches around you and teams like the awesome team, the boys and stuff, like they were really good. How's your knee, Shell? And messaging all the time and offering me workouts to do that didn't involve my legs. That's really important. So a support network for me helped me get through that. But I would say, I don't know if you've ever been to a point where something terrible has happened or you felt awful and then you've somehow managed to overcome it. And then everything else that you face, like a terrible workout, doesn't seem that bad because you went through that and you managed. And I think probably this year, whenever I went into the open, whenever I went into the tests, I always thought in the back of my mind that 6 months ago, I was told that was it. You're done now. You're finished now. Go and rehab so you can walk properly. That's what I was told. And it's like, I kept that in the back of my mind and thought, you know, it's an absolute privilege to be able to do this again. It's an absolute privilege that I get to hit my PBs, hit all my best lifts and more, and feel fine. And I'm not overdoing it. I listen to my body, I listen to my joints, and if I'm sore, then I address that. But I take all the right supplements. I notice when I don't. So I just make sure I'm in a routine with that. But the way I train now and how I work now is an absolute privilege to still be able to do this. So I think that's probably changed me as an athlete as well. A little bit of an appreciation.
I think before we look at any other aspects that have changed your kind of placing, I think when things happen to people as well, the last thing you can do is accept the first diagnosis you get. And I hate it when people come to me and they've said, oh, I've been to the doctors and they've said this, so I'm going to stop or I'm going to do whatever. And I'm like, look, that might be the case. That might be a legit diagnosis, but do not accept it. And I'll give you an example. I went to the doctors about 10 days ago to explore why my arm can't straighten. I went to go down the medical route again to get another x-ray to see if there's anything we can do. And the doctor said to me, look, there's no point opening you up for surgery. We can't do anything. It'll probably be worse off because the elbow's a complicated joint when you mess around with it surgically. But I've had this problem for what I know is 12 years, but I'm not going to stop searching for a solution. Even though I'm potentially probably never going to find a solution and I am never going to be able to do certain things physically because of, but I'm not going to start looking. When you get back pain, go and find a different practitioner if they can't find a problem. If you get an injury and they're like, yeah, you should stop playing football, don't accept it. Rehab it, do all the work, then see if you can strengthen it up and get back to what you're doing again. I don't like people accepting just like the opinion of one person, because especially the medical community, you know, there's great doctors, there's bad doctors, but they're always short on time, and the easy thing is to say, well, yeah, it's going to be tough, probably best leave it, because anything other than that, they've got to sit there for ages, they've got to explain how you're going to rehab it, the processes of change, all this kind of stuff, and sometimes people simply don't have the time to do that.
Yeah, that's it. Like, I'm so thankful for my own education, because I wrote, it took me a week to write my program, and I wrote it every day. I didn't walk for 3 days, 4 days, I didn't come to work. Plus, Beast this year, Battle of the Beast, which is now the European Championships, Carl Saville, they wrote some absolutely horrendous workouts. I'm not even sure I could have walked anyway, had I been fine. It was a real test of fitness that year. So I was at home anyway, and I wrote my own program, and you're right, had I been paying me for that program, I'd be due myself a lot of money. And also, the one-on-ones that I did here, with some of the boys, just to get them to watch my balance, I told them what they're looking for. I asked them to film me, help me do this, help me do that, and that's how I kind of fixed myself. But if that was with another specialist, I would have needed them here 3 times a week, 4 times a week. And that's that. No one has the money for that or the insurance cover for that, really. So yeah, I was really, really thankful for my own education here, and I would say I'm quite open-minded as a sports physio. I'm always about the adapted training, or using a little bit of initiative and making rehab a little bit more interesting, thinking outside the box a little bit. And I've always been that way with my clients. So when it came to myself, I was no different. I planned around it. I worked with what I could, and I was really, really methodical with it. Really diligent with my rehab every single day. So
I think what you've just highlighted here about time is, it sounded like to get yourself back on your feet as quickly as possible, you had to invest a lot of time in rehab, and you had to say no to some stuff. And I think wherever anyone is in their athletic career-based journey, you have to invest time in whatever it is. And I think quite often when an injury happens, and I see this all the time with food is a perfect example. When people can't exercise, they kind of almost throw the towel in with their diet. They're like, well, there's no point kind of eating well because I'm not really concentrated on my body as much. So people let it all go, eat what they want, and then when they're back on their feet again, they're like a stone and a half overweight. And then when you're back to fitness, you've got to spend that first 2 months just losing the weight that you put on again.
Just put on, exactly.
And you had a choice to make. You say, right, and for example, you could have done less rehab and earned more money, for example. You could have done more physio sessions rather than worked on yourself. But instead you said, well, I'm a CrossFit athlete, I want to be back on my feet, I don't want this injury, I'm going to spend a lot of time on myself. And as a result, through that process, you've jumped from 97th to 37th in the UK as a CrossFit athlete by dedicating the time to it.
I think one of the easiest things that propelled me into getting this sorted was I took my mum with me for my like third appointment. I have to say, actually, the NHS were awesome. I went straight in for an X-ray, and a week later I had an MRI, and then a week later I had another specialist appointment. It was great. But I took my mum with me, and she's like here all the time. She's such a constant, and she's done really well to invest in this and understand it. Like in the open, she would message me and ask me about my scores and be like, oh, what's the leaderboard and how's the team doing, and she really got behind me on it. And at that time she was like watching the live stream of Beasts, and she knew I was her, and when she came with me and the guy like looked at the MRI, and he just turned and looked at me, and my mum like instantly got upset. I actually feel emotional talking about it, because I feel like she was me sat there, like she was looking at this, and the diagnosis they gave me, I could see her like crumble from it, because she knows how much everything I do, like I miss a lot of things, and you have to sacrifice a lot to be in a constant with something. Like it is a process of change, and there is a tunnel vision on what you want to achieve, and that doesn't just affect you, that affects everyone around you. And my mum is my best friend, and she's there every day and every week, and my fridge is full of food, because she's like, right, I work from like 7 in the morning to like 8 at night every day in the gym, and I train at the same time. And so my mum will make sure there's food in my house. She will make sure that she has my dogs just now because I'm too busy. And whenever I wrote my rehab plan, I just thought all the time, like, she lives this with me. And when they said that was it done, she was absolutely devastated. And it's the first time I'd really felt her will for me to do well in CrossFit, because it's emotionally raw, isn't it? Like they said, that would probably be you now. And having seen me so little recently and over that year because of what I was trying to achieve, I think that was one of the biggest things behind me that just said, like, it's not just about you sometimes. Yeah, okay, it's your performance and it's your sport and it's your goals, but those who love you stand right behind your goals. They're holding your little ticket too. And I think that for me was like a massive push in the right direction, just to see that sometimes it's bigger than just you. So yeah.
And what happened in that process is it sounded like you were very open in communicating how much this meant to you, to friends, family and other people. And I think as people, because people are often selfish in nature, and I'm not saying that's a negative thing, that's just how we're built.
That's how we're built.
Yeah, we're built to look after ourselves first before anyone else. And when we do something that we're passionate about, or when we're on a journey that we are, following for whatever reason, we assume people think like us, and no one thinks like us, otherwise they would be us. So whether you're a CrossFit athlete or you're self-employed and you're training to become a personal trainer, the only way you can get people to understand is to effectively communicate. And again, that takes time. Bringing them aside and saying, I really need... It's like even a diet. Use a diet as an example. You're going on a diet and you want your partner's support. You have to sit them down and tell them why you want to go on this journey, and make them understand from your perspective that you're feeling maybe unhappy, that you've let yourself go, all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, you'll come up against loads of friction. And I suppose this is probably one of my biggest business lessons as someone that's self-employed, is that things only break down when you don't communicate effectively.
I totally agree, and I do agree with what you're saying. I think communication is key with everyone around you to help you going forward. However, I actually think, for me, I never once sat down and went, okay, like now I have, because I had to make a big choice. In October, I had a choice to make, what this was going to be and why I was going to put myself through weeks of rehab. Why? I had to effectively communicate then, but up to that point, I wouldn't say I had. I would say actions speak louder than words at times. And when I was getting up super early and running, don't know if anyone who knows me knows that I do not run. I do now, but I didn't then. And I would get up early, and my mum was like, where are you? And I went out running. And she'd just be like, all right. Okay. And like that was like a thing. Like that's how people knew I was taking it seriously. Like even here, I've got a family at this box. All the boys I work with, Graham and Johnny and Jamesy, Liam, Sam, all of them, they seen me run all the time. And I'd come in and sit on a rower for ages. And you could see them pass looks between themselves like, oh, she actually means this. And so I would say, yes, effectively communicate. Talk to people about your goals. Write them down. Make them visual. Put them on the wall. Absolutely. And then people know that you're serious. But actions speak louder than words. Get doing it. Work towards your goals. Show people that every day you're staying on that track. And that's what it's about, this process of change. You have to commit to the long haul. And that means one little thing every day. And I always ask myself, what did I do today to better my business? What did I do today to better my nutrition? What did I do today to better my health, my fitness, my sport, my attitude, and my compassion to others? And I think about that all the time. I ask myself those questions, and if I can't answer them that day, I'll make sure I can answer them the next.
Compassion's a funny one. It's I saw you at the Inferno event, a week or so ago, and that's one thing that makes me love CrossFit is the compassion and the humble attitude that I'm going to say 99% of CrossFit have. Because if you cross-section other areas of fitness, and I'm gonna bitch on bodybuilding because as a whole, as a generalisation, I don't see very many humble, compassionate people in bodybuilding comparative to CrossFit.
Yeah.
Generally because of the types of characters that operate in these different fields. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm making a generalisation. But that is what has warmed me towards CrossFit, because the people.
Totally. It's an atmosphere that you don't feel anywhere else. I've done quite a few sports in my life. But you're right, like CrossFit and people who go through that process together form a bit of a bond. And like even at a competition, people you don't know. That's the Inferno Pairs series. I did it with Chloe Williams. She's an amazing athlete from Wales. And she dragged me through some of them because it was more fitness based. It was like a fitness competition rather than CrossFit. There was no like CrossFit skills like double unders, handstand push-ups. There was no rig, no pull-ups, no toes to bar, nothing like that. It was more like fitness based, and that's what I really need to work on. Like in my future plan, my coach has written me a lot of aerobic based stuff. Like I'm building foundations of fitness, the stuff that keeps your lungs and your heart going, the stuff that helps you not stop when it gets really tough and a bit blowy. So that's what that was all about. And Chloe, she's great to work with in a pair. She's so knowledgeable, but she's also very compassionate. I was dying at one point, and she was like so reassuring for me when she gets nothing out of that. Obviously we're in a pair, but like she's good. She still looks amazing. It was me that was dying, and she was stood there beside me, giving me all this encouragement. And you do the same for people you don't know. If they're not finished and you are, you don't think twice. You just walk over and you say, come on, you can do this. Whether it's picking up a bar, whether it's running, whether it's rowing, or like sharing. Not many people share anymore. And this year at Inferno, I seen a girl going to buy a weight belt. It's very expensive to buy for one day because she just forgotten her own. So I just gave her mine. And she was like, are you sure? I'm like, it's only a weight belt. No, we can share. Like, we're in different heats anyway. You take it, go and do what you need to do, and I'll get it off it at the end. And I think anyone would do that. In CrossFit, I don't think twice about asking to borrow. I would never walk up to someone in the gym, like the old generic gym I used to go to, and be like, can I borrow your wrist straps? That just wouldn't happen.
Why? Because the majority of the people there wouldn't. And they've
no,
set the culture.
But what elements of compassion did you see when you were there?
I saw a massive amount of all the competitors would talk to each other. And there's not, most people would see competitors as competitors, but we're not, when we're doing this kind of stuff, we're not necessarily competing against the man opposite us in terms of like being at war. We are generally competing against ourselves to make ourselves better.
My body competes against my mind.
Yeah.
When I'm in a competition, my body is trying to overrule my mind, which is telling me to go and eat a donut and just be happy.
Yeah, but you were 97th. You're now 37th. You don't think about the however many people that you've beaten and think, I'm now better than you. You think, I'm now twice as good as I was 1 year ago. So that means the investment that I've made in myself has paid off because the numerical value of who I've beaten has worked out. I have placed higher.
Be the best you. Be the best version of yourself.
And I think sometimes that's what people miss about competition. It's not about beating your opposite man. It's about making the best out of you. And the placing is just a reflection of how much effort or ability you have compared to other people.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's one of the good things about the CrossFit Open every year is that you do tend to look at the numbers. You don't tend to look at the people. You do look at where you came. You do look at how close you are to that 30 people in Europe get to go to regionals as individuals. And we do look at that, and that's how I measure it. I'm a little bit of a way off yet. But last year, I was miles off. And this year, on some of the workouts, I would say I was closer to being a contender than I've ever been. And that's great. And considering 5 months ago, I blew my knee off, I'm so happy with how far I've come. And it is all down to that tunnel vision. It's all down to working on yourself and constantly building little Lego blocks. It's marginal gains. You get 1% a week if you're exceptional. Apart from that, it's just turning up consistently every day, trying not to overtrain. Turn up 5 days a week, rest, recover, make sure that you do high intensity, make sure that you do your long duration stuff, make sure that you pick up a few barbells, you get on the rig, you lay on the floor a few times. You just have to do little and often and not be sidetracked from that. And I think one of the biggest things I could say is consistency. Not to come in 1 week and absolutely smash everything you've ever tried to do. You don't need to hit a PB every day to know that you're improving. You just need to know that you turned up. I would say one thing about the CrossFit is as well that if you don't turn up for a couple of days, you can't, people know. You can't escape that. People know. They will be there. Where are you? Why are you not training? I think that's important too, to make you feel like you're included in something.
So, Shelly, we've talked about a lot. We've talked roughly a little bit about your nutrition. Training, you've become more efficient. You're not avoiding your weaknesses, which is easy to do. Is there anything else that you think you've implemented to become a better athlete in the last year that's made you able to climb those places that maybe other people can learn from?
A few things. I would say get out there. So in November, I was approached by my coach who said, as part of your development as an athlete, you need to get out more. You need to see more people, be challenged by others, go head to head with people who are definitely better than you. And he invited me down to Cardiff to Ion Strength and Conditioning to train with his group. So I went in November, went in December, and it was then that I realised that I needed that. I needed a new group. I needed a new challenge, new faces, and I needed to feel like sometimes you do actually need to be put in a situation where you have to prove yourself. You have to prove your fitness, and there's no hiding. And when you're in a brand new group of people, somehow you go a little bit harder. You go a little bit faster. You do a little bit more than what you thought you could do, because humans are so insecure by nature that they want to be accepted. Humans are pack animals. We want to be accepted. We want to be friends with everyone, but we want people to think that we are good. I wanted them to think she's actually not that bad. So I had to go a level above where I've ever went here. And that's what I've done. And I would say being included into that group, that's why I registered in Wales this year, because that's where I was pretty much all the time. And in that group of people, that also brought me up in standings. They pushed me so hard, and all the other girls would go into CrossFit Open 1, 17.1, and bring out these amazing scores. And I managed to do 17.1 in like 13 minutes. And I swear to God, I went in there hoping for 16 minutes. But because they were around me and because they went before me, I seen what they could do, and I thought, I want to be as good as them. So I went as hard as I possibly could, because I didn't want to feel like I wasn't good enough, and that was a good enough pressure for me to push myself into the next level. So being down in Cardiff with that group of people has pushed me to the next level. So getting out there, my first thing I'd say is get out there, see new people, be challenged by others. Don't be afraid to train with those who are much better than you, because it will only help. And I would probably say reflecting. I reflect a lot on my performance. No matter what I do, I reflect a lot on my week. I reflect a lot on my training schedule and my diary for work. Did I work too much? Did I work too little? Did I eat enough? Did I sleep enough? What happened in my week that was positive and what happened in my week that was negative? Because I feel like it's the only way to educate myself on how to get better is to look at what I did, how I done it, and did it work or not. And I would say reflection, and I write a lot of blogs talking about my time away and how I worked with other athletes and stuff, and that's great to look back on and see where I was at that point, my mindset at that point. My change in program, that's had a massive plan. Obviously, I've only been on the MoveFit since November, December time, and it's only been a couple months, but what a difference I feel already from doing that. I've already PB'd a bunch of lifts. My nutrition, that's probably the biggest one. That's been the constant. I've worked for my nutritionist a year in May. And in that year, we've had different goals, but always working towards the same thing. So he wanted me to be at my best, be at my most robust, the most energetic I could be for the Open. And he absolutely nailed it for me. I went into the Open feeling the fittest I'd ever felt. And at the end of it, I felt the worst I ever have because I gave everything I absolutely had. And then this last 2 weeks, I spent time just recovering. My macros have changed a little bit. We're doing a little bit different at the minute. We're getting me back to being happy, and my health and well-being is priority at the minute. And we're still waiting to find out how my team has done. So on Strength and Conditioning, our team went into the Open. We've done really, really well. And we're currently sitting 27th on the leaderboard. Now, in Europe, the top 20 teams go to regionals. However, in the team board, lots of the athletes who are registered in a team will accept an individual invitation to regionals. So their score will then be discounted from their team, which means their team may drop out of the top 20, which means the others obviously go up. We're still waiting on that shuffle happening, but you know, looking back at previous years, those who have been in our position have been there. So we're waiting, like bated breath, fingers crossed, and that's exhausting. I am tired of waking up and wondering if today's the day that we find out. I've never checked the leaderboard because it doesn't change. It doesn't seem to change. And I know that as soon as our coach Mike finds out, we'll know. We might not make it this year. But you know what the coolest thing that's ever happened to me in CrossFit so far has been? Waking up thinking that it's possible. I have never thought it's possible. And I went into this year's Open thinking, no way. But it would be cool to be in a team. That's what I thought. I just want to be in a team. I've never been in a team before. I'd never been considered in a team before. That's what I thought was cool. And it wasn't until we got like 3 or 4 of the workouts in that I thought, I was sitting with Mike one night and he said, believe. It's time to start believing. And then the next day I came home and my mum brought me a cushion that said never stop believing on it. And I loved it, and I just thought this is a thing. This is like a sign, like I'm gonna start believing. So I totally did. I dropped myself into looking at what it was like in Madrid and what the weather would be like in June and everything. And we're still waiting to find out if we've made it. And even if we don't, it'll be by 2 or 3 places max. It'll be marginal if we don't make it. But the coolest thing that's ever happened is that I actually believe that we could. I'm sitting here right now thinking it's possible. And that's huge for me, to believe in something that I want to achieve. So yeah, that's awesome. And even if we don't make it, I'm so much fitter today than I was 6 months ago. I'm so much more skillful. I have so much more focus towards my goal. And see now that it's been like here, whether we make it or not, if we don't, I can see it. It's right there. And that's only going to fuel me for every single workout I do from now till next year. I'm going to think about those couple of spaces the couple of workouts, the couple of seconds, the couple of reps. I'm going to think about them every single training session I do to become a better me.
So if you didn't get into regionals, would you still feel that all the effort, all the extra hours, all the discipline, maybe some of the heartache, for you it's still worth it?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that decision I made in October, I made a choice very similar in November, December to go and be in Cardiff. And that meant I flew down every single Friday morning early if I could. And I trained there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I'd get home late on a Tuesday sometimes. And I'd only be here for 2 or 3 days. And in that time, I had to see all my clients. So I was sometimes starting at 6 a.m., sometimes in the gym here till 9, 10 p.m. at night, writing my programs when I'm away, communicating online, keeping people on side, doing the best I could for my business. But I made a choice in November to do that because, and with no guarantees, there's no guarantees to this. Doesn't matter, the workouts could have been anything. We could have totally smashed it because every single workout was completely suited to us. Or the opposite, we could have done terribly because, whatever it was that Dave Castro put out, just as a team, we hadn't quite got yet. I don't know. But I made a choice to commit to that process, and it was tunnel vision. Book your flights, go early Friday, come home late Tuesday, train 4 times on a Saturday and a Sunday, get your rest in, use the Compex machine, prep meals with Mike at night, all of that. Everything was the same every single week up until the very last week of the Open. We did everything the same, but I stayed an extra couple of days to just chill out with the team. And then now we're doing the same thing. I'm traveling to London with the team to compete with them. And this weekend is the first weekend I've been home in 2017. That weekend just passed. The first weekend I've been home. And it was great. And I spent the whole weekend with everyone at the box. I didn't rest. I trained both days, but with this group of guys. And we ate we had a curry all together, and we just chilled out, and we just chilled out. It was great, being at home, but I wouldn't change the process I've went through over the last few months because it's bettered me as an athlete, it's bettered me as a person, it's given me focus, it's given me direction, and I've made some friends down there that I've been friends with for a very long time, I'd imagine. So yeah, it's worth it. Obviously, if I could somehow not have spent all that money, I would do that because I would love some new clothes and get my hair done or something. The money thing was the hardest part, because I wasn't working as much as what I had been. I was cramming what would be my 7-day week into a 4-day space. That was hard, but I wouldn't change it for anything. Whether we make it or not, this has been an awesome experience being part of that team.
So there you go. It's about the journey and not the destination.
100%. 100%. Even if we don't make it, if someone had said, do you want to do all this, but you definitely won't make it, I think I've still been yeah. Training a team with cool guys and learn something new and go somewhere new. I'm all about adventure. I'm not much of a home bird. I travelled a lot as a kid with horses, riding abroad and riding for different people, that now I love it. I crave it. I love adventure. I love new places. So, all about it. I highly recommend it to anyone. Travel, go new places.
Well, Shelley, it's been a very insightful, enjoyable podcast. Again, your 3rd visit. Who knows if there'll be a 4th. Good luck for all the rest of 2017. Hopefully people have gleaned a few little pearls out of this podcast for themselves, more than anything. Just 1 or 2 things that has made them think. For me, that's enough. Shelley, if people want to find you online, where do they look?
I'm most active on Instagram for an athlete account. It's CF Shelley. I use Facebook quite a bit, promote quite all my videos and stuff go on Facebook. That's just my name, Shelly McCoy, and everyone's welcome to follow me. But I have a business page as well, Complete Physique, and I tend to post a lot of my blogs on there. I have an actual blog page, so that's pretty much just talking about my experiences and my travel and what we've just been talking about now. I've just written a new blog. It's called Tunnel Vision, and it's about my journey from last year to now. It's about getting through my rehab and my knee, and it's about the Open and who I've become over the last few months based on my surroundings. Definitely a product of my surroundings. So it's about that. It's tunnel vision. It's a bit about the focus it takes to be an athlete and the sacrifice you have to give and whether it's worth it or not.
Well, there you go, people. CF Shelley on Instagram, Shelly McCoy on Facebook, and Complete Physique as well. Shelley, thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Good luck again. Right, everyone, you beautiful people. Next week, I will be interviewing Michael Hawke. That is going to be a fascinating interview. Ex-Army, I think SEAL or Marine. I'll probably butchered that. He was on Dirty Sanchez. He's been on loads of amazing programs in America. He is a very, very colourful character, but he will be with me on the show next week. As you will have known from last week, my UK tour is now live. Go to Eventbrite, you will find it. Type in Ben Coomber, you will find me. Both my How to Be Awesome and How to Build a Diet seminar is there, and the PT development series is there as well. Otherwise, that's it from me. Shelley, thanks for joining us. And for you people, I will speak to you next week. Goodbye. Hey everyone, thank you for radio episode number 253. The Fox is back in the house.